Bad times create strong men create good times create weak men create bad times. What's your thoughts and advice regarding this statement? Bad times also create weak people, damaged people, and people who want to make bad times for others. Hard times can help you become an empathetic person, or it can turn your heart cold. We are each too individualized for one saying to really apply across the board. I think it's weird that people quote it so much. It's from a post-apocalyptic novel by G. Michael Hoff called Those Who Remain. I think it's weird that people quote it so much because in the book, it's presented as an inescapable cycle. In other words, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just how it is. If you read the quote and think, that's why we need strong men, then you missed the point of the quote. The point of the quote is that humanity is stuck in an endless cycle, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's very cynical. Also, I just kinda disagree with it. It reminds me of Nietzsche's "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." Nietzsche was talking about suffering here, basically saying that suffering is a gift, mostly in a philosophical sense. He wasn't literally saying that getting your ass kicked makes you a tougher dude. It doesn't. But that's how we've decided to interpret it, even though clearly, obviously, there are plenty of things that can hurt you without killing you and make you weaker: being crippled, contracting AIDS, being put in a coma, being born in North Korea, not receiving an adequate education, being enslaved. Let's be clear. Suffering is suffering. It's not a training montage. It's suffering. Suffering doesn't necessarily make you stronger. In my experience, certain types of suffering generally make people weaker. Material deprivation, for instance. Material deprivation is a type of suffering that mostly just robs you. It takes years off your life, it limits your opportunities, it worsens your health. Studies have shown growing up poor can even lower your IQ. I grew up in a really poor part of rural Arkansas, but I was lucky enough to get out and go to a pretty decent university. I remember when I got there, I assumed that I would be stronger than my classmates. Most of them had grown up privileged, after all, and privilege makes you weak, right? One of the most unpleasant realizations of my life was the realization that growing up, relatively poor had actually given me nothing over my classmates. They were smart. They had good attitudes. They worked hard. They were generous. Actually, they were much nicer, harder working, and giving people than the people I grew up with in Arkansas. They didn't struggle with substance abuse and depression the way the people I grew up with did. And the worst part? They weren't petty and afraid like the people I grew up with. That was a rude awakening. I thought I'd be tougher and more resilient than the rich kids I was suddenly going to school with. In fact, I realized growing up with less than them had only given me depression, bad drinking habits, and a chip on my shoulder. That sucked. Nietzsche's point was that since life is suffering, the more you suffer, the more you know about life. I guess I agree with that. But honestly, in my opinion, harder times create weaker men who abuse opiates more often and take care of their responsibilities less reliably. Suffering is really cruel that way, I think. And in any event, even if you take G. Michael Hoff at his word, he sees it as an endless cycle we're doomed to repeat over and over again. So what's the point?